Now, earlier we saw Kieran Grimes recommend his top 10 children's books of the year, and in his top 3 were some beautiful choices, but what makes them a cut above the rest?
Well, he's here to tell us why his top 3 are the perfect gift for children this Christmas. Thanks a million for coming in, Kieran, once again. Our bookworm, see, he doesn't mind being called a bookworm.
I don't mind that at all. No, that's okay.
It's a compliment, I think. It's great to appreciate and love
just in case you were sensitive and you were offended.
No.
Erring on the politically correct side.
So your top 3 this year, and your third before you sleep, I have to say, I was here when we interviewed Benji and Bennett.
Well, you tell the story, Kieran.
Yeah. Well, it's just a wonderful book. The background, very briefly, it's about Benji's son Adam, who passed away because of a vascular tumour. And he was only 4 at the time. So this inspired Benji to write this book. And the message really is for parents to tell their children as often as they can, look, I love you, and not to be afraid to do that, because, you know, we just don't say that enough. But the story is basically the life of Benji and Adam has been recreated in these fantastic illustrations, and they're basically adventures that a father and son would have. And there are adventures on the beach. There's adventures as if they were, you know, two bees flying over the, you know, the world. Pirate adventure. There's a space adventure. But what's really fascinating about this are the drawings. As
the illustrations are absolutely
beautiful. They're absolutely fantastic. And I think it's a great incentive to get the kids to go to bed as well, because they'll be fit to look at these drawings in great detail. And also the verses, the actual writing, it's very poetic and it rhymes. So children love nursery rhymes, they love rhyming words. So it's just a wonderful gift, and I say the message really is to make the most of your loved ones when they're alive, and not to be afraid to say that.
Yeah, the illustrations are beautiful as well because they're very easy for children to copy if they're artistic and they want to do it. So it's kind of a double treat, really.
And they're a bit like Disney kind of characters, the way they're drawn. I mean, I just loved it. And
what's particularly, I mean, they're done in very traditional sort of storybook style. What's particularly poignant about that is that the hero, Adam, if you were to see a picture of Adam in real life,
really, he looks like
it is him. He was the most extraordinary looking child with this massive. He looked like something. He looked like a child that would be on, you know, on a picture box or in films or something like that. Most incredible head of blonde curly hair, angelic looking, a beautiful looking child. And it was unquestionably one of the toughest interviews we had to do during the course of the year. It was heartbreaking. Listening to it, it was heartbreaking. Listening to Owen talk about it, but ultimately uplifting at the very end of it, because I don't think any parent needs to be reminded how much they love their children. No. But they do need to be reminded to tell their children that a bit more often.
Of course, and also the proceeds is going towards Bardstown as well.
It would help kids
who
I think
are
a lot of people, when they read it, it's a beautiful book when you realise the story behind it. It is so sad, but yet out of the sadness, he's done such good work raising funds for
But it's a celebration of love, you know, and an extraordinary gesture from 2 people who must be going through the absolute horrors over it, you know.
Of course.
Anyway, Before You Sleep by Benji.
It's $9.99 in Hughes and Hughes.
Okay. Now your second choice, Kieran, I was really, because you see, you know, I'm constantly slagged here about my age and remembering things.
Well, I'm sure you don't remember when this was published.
I don't remember this, but
I
do know of it, and it was very popular a very, very long time ago. It's unusual in that this would be considered an American classic.
Absolutely. I mean, it's called The Gift of the Magi, or Magi, depending where in the country you're from.
We're having a row about that earlier.
And it's by O. Henry, who's a very, very famous American writer.
And the Magi were the 3 wise men. And it was actually, interestingly enough, apparently it was written in the front booth in Pete's Tavern in New York, and people will know that's one of the oldest bars in America. I don't know whether that's true or not, but that's
and O. Henry would have been a frequenter of it.
Probably, well. So it's basically the story of this lovely couple called Jim and Della, and Della has got really long knee-length hair, and they don't have much money, so she wants to buy her husband a chain to go with his pocket watch, which he got from his dad. So she sells her hair. She gets it cut to a wig maker. So she gets $20, buys the chain, but unbeknownst to her, her husband Jim sells the watch to buy her combs for her hair. So whenever Christmas arrives and they give each other the presents, well, the presents are rendered useless because she doesn't have her long hair anymore and he doesn't have his watch. So it's just a beautiful story.
But the sentiment behind what they did.
Exactly, it's a sentiment, and the connection with the Magi, you know, they were wise men, and the author would say, well, these two people were very wise because out of love they bought these gifts. And
they sacrificed so much.
Exactly, and once they were rendered useless, that didn't matter. You know,
It's the thought that counts.
It's the thought, but again, it's beautifully illustrated as well. Very atmospheric drawings. So again, it's just a lovely, timeless gift.
Oh, you get a sense of how beautiful her hair was in that last shot.
Exactly.
The frame before that. I don't know that you can see that.
It was really, really long. So so.
Beautiful
that's
illustration.
gorgeous. It's lovely to see that stuff, stories like that coming back into fashion.
Well, it's 100 years old next year. It was 1909 when it was
You're not
published.
quite that old, Mark.
There you go.
And it's 1490 again from Hughes and Hughes.
Well, that's an American classic.
Yeah.
Anyway, right, last one. Now, this is a modern.
Well, this is a modern children's fantasy, but also an adult fantasy by Neil Gaiman, who brought us Stardust and Coraline and the
Sandman comics.
And the Sandman comic series. I have both. I have the US edition here and the UK edition, just by different illustrators. It's a really interesting story. Neil Gaiman was very much influenced by the Jungle Book. Where you have this young boy orphaned, brought up by the animals in the jungle. Where this is about a little boy who, unfortunately, his mum and dad and older sister are all killed by this man called Jack. But while this is all happening in the house, the little toddler, he climbs out over his cot, leaves the front door, just leaves the house and makes his way into a graveyard. And I think it's about 18 months, and the ghosts in the graveyard basically decide, they have a big meeting, what they're going to do with this child, this human child, and they all decide that they will keep him and they will bring him up. So he is brought up by this couple called the Owenses, and they give him a name, Nobody, because he doesn't look like anybody. Because all the people in the graveyard were saying, well, he looks like my son, he looks like my granddad, and they're all trying to give him a name. But the Owenses says, no, he doesn't look like anybody, so we'll call him Nobody Owens, and Bod for short. So the main guy's called Bod. And it's just basically about his upbringing in the graveyard. And as he grows older, he becomes more and more curious about what happens outside the graveyard and about the human world. But they're afraid to let him get out because this killer is still after him and doesn't know where he is. So it's just a very interesting, and again, it's beautifully illustrated, and again, it's by Neil Gaiman, who is...
The American one is one, the illustrator on the American one is a man called Dave McKean, who is Neil Gaiman's longtime illustrator.
Exactly.
He would have done a lot of the Sandman stuff with him. So personally, I would say if you had a choice of the two, try and get the American one.
Yeah,
but that's not to say that the one... I don't know who the English illustrator is.
It's a guy called Chris Riddle. I don't know really much, I don't know anything about him, but they're both lovely. Age groups, I would say, from 10 years upwards. I mean, I've read it, and I mean, adults would get
significantly older than
Well, I'm
10.
much older, but adults would get something different from it. But I'd say not really under 10 years old, because it's a lot of ghosts and kind of scary.
Maybe to read,
Exactly. So, but again, it'll keep children that age completely engrossed.
And Neil
over
Gaiman
Christmas,
is the king of the graphic novel. He is.
He's got his new film Coraline is out in February, which was again like a graphic novel out about 2 years ago.
He is probably the most.
He's been on
maybe
here,
the most.
actually.
Oh, he's been on 4 or 5 times. He's probably the most talented fantasy writer in the business at the moment. Kieran, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
We'll leave it at that. Have a very happy Christmas. Thank you for everything you've done for us during 2008.
You're very welcome.
We look forward to seeing you again in 2009. And can I just add, by the way, to that, if you're a parent and you've got a sort of a prepubescent, teenage girl, 10 to 14, 15, 16, and indeed up, you might want to check out the Stephanie Meyer books.
Yes.
The movie's in
Twilight.
at the moment, Twilight, and if you've got a 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old girl in the house, the chances are she's probably already been on to you about that. But the books are fabulous as well. There's 4 of them. Start with Twilight, and then go and see the movie with your daughter, and then wait for the moment when Edward arrives on screen and see their reaction. I was there on Saturday, 300 women from 10 to 25, and there was a kind of a simper went up in the cinema. Not a scream or a squeal, a kind of a... I don't know what it was like, but it was very disconcerting sitting next to my 10-year-old doing it. You're looking at
it's
a
all
little
ahead
girl.
of you now. That's just the start.
I know.
Anyway, we'll take a break back in a few minutes.